Quotation from myself, segment 12. Quotation number 147. One is always singing solo, one melody. Two can sing either in unison, when both are singing the same melody, or in duet, two different melodies. Consequently, in a duet, each singer experiencing certain difficulties is singing his part correctly, while hearing a melody sung by his partner, because man's natural urge to mimic forces him to follow his partner instead of doing his own part. Thus, the most important skill which singer in a duet should possess is the ability to resist this impulse to imitate, to follow, to join in unison. And the easiest ways to do it is by not listening to one's partner. But then it can and will create dissonance that destroy the duo. Therefore, in duet, each singer has to both listen and not to listen. If one is able to do that, one becomes a perfect duet singer. Two persons speaking to each other are such duo too. Their conversation is a duet sung by them. If both possess in equal measure the ability to listen and not to listen to each other, and moreover to appreciate the argument of other side without losing one's own, to be in a communion without surrendering one individuality, the intercourse will be as perfect as a perfect duet. If not, it could easily turn into a cacophony. Of course, there is a trio or quartet that thus became so much more complicated, and much greater skill is required from each singer interlocutor to create a harmonious choir. Number 148. If words or thoughts are not wedded to the paper by printing press, are they less legitimate than those that are? Number 149. We have God who have chosen us, but they took him away and made him their God. And whatever possession we ever had, they always envied us, and sooner or later would take them away too. And even when the only thing we have left was our suffering, and we thought that nobody will take it away, because who wants suffering? We were mistaken, for they begrudged us even our suffering, our Holocaust. Now all of them have their own holocausts. Number 150. Everyone is personally responsible for his or her own sanity. Number 151. People prefer to turn their lives into games and play these games to avoid and forget reality. For in a game there are rules. There is a beginning and the end. The game has a structure, but reality has none of the above. It is totally chaotic, and it can make you totally mad. The games people turn their lives into are like the island of safety in the inhospitable ocean of reality, and it is dangerous to stray away from those islands too far. Number 152. Reality as it is too complex for any of us to handle. So we use different games to simplify it and to make it more manageable. Or our laws, rules, regulations, moral ideologies, religions, etc. are the different kind of games we play to live. Number 153. In dealing with reality, our most important faculty is our ability to think. But not everybody thinks in the same way. Though there is a big gray mass in between, people can be roughly divided into two main groups: those who think logically and those who do not. In the course of their lives, members of each group, one no more than another, are trying to find refuge from reality by using their specific modes of thinking, namely, those with logical minds by being logical, those with illogical minds by being illogical. Contrary to the popular belief that having logical mind is more useful or even necessary in order to cope with life, one group is usually as successful or unsuccessful as the other in achieving this universal goal. Ultimately, it all depends on the kind of reality each individual member of either group is faced with at any particular moment of his or her life, because the reality itself is not uniform and homogeneous. Like a human mind, which is its product, and therefore a reflection of, reality can also be divided into opposites, though not contradictory kinds, the logical and illogical. The logical reality consists of events that always come to pass in the same way, and therefore are deemed to be governed by the laws of logic derived from necessity. That is, given certain prior condition as a premises, certain posterior events would follow out of necessity at the conclusion. The illogical reality comprises the events that never occur in the same way, but always differently, and, as if by chance, at random and spontaneously. Within the realm of such events, it is impossible to establish causal connection, because when certain prior conditions are given as premise, any posterior event may be followed, but none as a conclusion and of necessity, thus placing all such events outside the sphere of the logical reality. Now, the people of logical type of mind always try to explain and subsequently cope with all reality, both logical and illogical, by using logic. As a result, they are successful when faced with logical reality and, understandably, unsuccessful facing the illogical one. Similarly, the people with the logical type of mind, while dealing with reality, do not use logic on the assumption that all reality is illogical. Accordingly, are successful when faced with the logical part of reality and unsuccessful confronting its logical part. Both kinds can't help but to behave in the way they do, because that's the way they are. It is as unnatural for the logical type to think illogically and to accept that the reality is chaotic and unpredictable, as for a logical type to think logically and to believe that there is any consistency in the world around them. How do these two types get along with one with another? It wouldn't be an overstatement to say that they don't mix very well. The profound and seemingly irreconcilable differences between their type of thinking is probably one of the leading causes of conflict in human relationship, especially in a family situation where people have no other choice but to strive to attain at least some kind of harmony. Needless to say, quite often, the only result of their efforts is unending and futile struggle, since they can no more understand each other than the people who speak different languages. Number 154. The behavior of the crowd can be partially explained by the fact that the crowd consists of individuals who seldom or most likely never had the opportunity to express themselves in public, especially politically. And so the crowds, or as it's sometimes disparagingly called the mob's behavior, is like that of a man who, after a long and imposing him period of silence, suddenly is given opportunity to speak. Such a man, knowing by his previous experience that he can be stopped at any moment, would usually speak very fast, feverishly trying to compress in a few short moments the thoughts and feelings which has been pent up for a long, long time, and inevitably it sounds like an explosion. The crowd also knows collectively that its brief chance of freedom to act and to express itself can be stopped at any moment, and it explodes too. 155. Unless the whole is known, its different parts seems having nothing in common or even being contradictory to each other. Number 156. The real Socrates was, in all probability, much more open, clear, and straightforward man than the shrewd but vague and shifty character depicted by Plato, obviously for purely grammatical effects. The clear thoughts express themselves in clear sentences as well. Number 157. Many a poet are often facing the dilemma, either to remain a true poet and wait for inspiration, or to force oneself to write despite its absence, thus turning into craftsman, even if a very skillful one. Number 158. The sexual revolutionaries of yesterday, like Freud, Joyce, G.H. Lawrence, etc., have become today's idols. Not so with the social ones. The former were catering to the whims of human nature, the later condemned it. Number 159. Beholding ancient ruins, be aware that once upon a time they were the new, as the just built office tower that cast a shadow over City Square. Number 160. Plato puts his idea in a form of dialogue in which his alter ego Socrates always wins an argument. This is a very clever and convincing stratagem, since the reader usually identifies himself with Socrates' interlocutory adversary and thus takes, albeit vicariously, a part in a dialogue. As a result, when the opponents of Socrates are persuaded to agree with him, such a reader feels automatically convinced also without actually putting forth any of his own argument against Plato/Socrates. People who do not have a natural inclination for arguments of any, especially intellectual sort, feel quite comfortable in such a situation. But those who do have the desire and ability to argue render impotent and frustrated.